Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday night. It's Dr. Boz, and we are live here on YouTube. I am going to pick up this week where I left off last week, talking about set points and why they are so important in your weight loss journey. It is a critical step that is not often talked about, really difficult to explain when you get into the endocrine and chemistry side of it, and there are all kinds of obstacles like psychological issues that play into this. Before we do that, we're going to start with some traditions, which is checking my numbers. I am happy to say that I've done a great job on my fast. I did peek at my numbers right before this, and they were not great. I mean, my glucose was great, but my ketones are just in the drink. I think it might have to do with stress. I am launching a big start date tomorrow, and I know it's been keeping me awake. So I am sure that even though my glucose is 51 and ketones are counting down here, there we go. I love seeing how all of you are checking in and where you're from. It really does help me just to get to know the ones that show up. Yeah, it was 0.6 about 10 minutes ago, and 0.7 doesn't surprise me. But this was about 59 or 60. So it's on the drop, which usually means these are going to be on the rise. So if I would do nothing between now and the end of the show, which is when I recheck them, I'm pretty sure these would rise, but who knows? Depends on if my slides work and if I have any stress during the show, I suppose. During the show, I am going to drink some water plus my new favorite thing, which does not have anything in it except ketones. I don't do this any other time during a fast because I'm usually pretty good at my fast. Actually, I did do it this time. I got really irritated yesterday. And instead of eating, I added some ketones. All right, so I keep popping these open and getting them. Last time it got me in the eye. So I'm just using a scissors while in front of everybody so that doesn't happen again. All right, and it is lemony. So if you guys do not like lemon, be careful with this. It is also pure ketones. They are liquid ketones, nothing else. I designed this to strengthen the other ketones in a can, the powdered ketones, because you can only get them so sour before newbies just can't deal with it. They are still used to the sweet stuff, so I like to put this in the ketone powders when I want something sweet, and I just like it more sour, more tart than I did. That's not an uncommon thing for keto people to like it more sour. Just looking at some of the folks from Cocoa Beach, I actually drove up to almost to Cocoa Beach yesterday, or this past weekend. We were coming home from a wrestling tournament and said, oh my gosh, that lady Mary comes to see us several Tuesdays out of the month for our support groups here at 8 o'clock in the morning. And when I saw how far away Cocoa Beach in Florida is from Tampa, I had a higher level of respect even more. I know I'd looked at it on the map, but it was a long ways every Tuesday. We're going to mention Mary and her story a little bit in our slides tonight, but several other folks checking in from where you're at. I love to see that. Hi to the Midwesterners, my people. And without delay, 4 minutes after, we are getting into the message because this is a ton of information and I do want to get through it. I'm very interested in trying to see if this message connects with you like I think it will. So let me get over to my iPad. Yeah, there you go. And this time my pencil does work. Just checking there. Yeah, good deal. All right, so we're going to start with this concept that when people lose weight and they come in to see me, I will ask them about, well, what is your weight loss over the last or what is your weight gain, over the last several years? And if they're 38 years old or north, so let's just get into those late 30s, early to mid 40s, and they've got a weight problem. I'll ask them, well, how did the weight problem come about? Where is that? Where are you in the lineup for how your weight has been over the last decade? And they'll say, Doc, there is a time or two in my life where the weight shot up by about 10 pounds. But other than that, it is this gradual process. And when you ask them to map it out, they look at their weight gain as this rather steady line. many times they can identify like a spot. Let's see here, a spot or two where they know that stress impacted their weight gain, but for the most part, they're like a few pounds every year. It just gradually came on. This is what happened. And if you look at several of the studies that track people really well, like the Nurses' Health Study, or the cohorts that are not just a recollection in patients' brain, but actually measuring their weight over time, we know that weight gain is not what they think it is. This is the reality of weight gain. That they will start out with that high school weight. Usually they can all remember what they were, or approximately what they were at the time when they graduated high school. And when that graduation happened, they often, a few months later, went to college, or at least left home. It's in that freshman 15 that it's not an accident. That is usually about what happens when they don't have anybody regulating their food, and God forbid they're eating college food, which is all, isn't it all ramen noodles? Isn't it all processed carbs? But they'll gain that weight at the beginning of their college career, and then it's quite stable. It is quite stable. And it's during this phase that we are going to spend time educating you what's happening there, what went on when they weren't noticing. They tried to lose a little weight, and maybe it went down a little bit, but it returned back to a baseline that is pretty predictable. And the next thing that usually happens is they graduate from college a few years later, and another 15 pounds happen. And so now they're up 30 pounds from where they were, but honestly, they kind of look like everybody else. They look like everybody at the workforce. In fact, they're usually the younger ones, so they look pretty lean compared to the rest of the workforce. And if you look around America, that's true. Next that happens is a stress happens where they say, I'm going to get married. And in that marriage, they'll work for the weight loss that they know there's another important picture in life coming. They're not just girls, boys and girls want to look good at that wedding picture, and they will work to lose weight. But right after that weight loss comes this return of the weight that was there originally. And then usually some more. And the next stressor can be a house, and the next one's a kid, and the next one's a sick parent, or they got ill, or they lost their job. They are, when tracking what happens during weight gain, it is a burst of weight gain and then a plateau. A burst of weight gain and then a plateau. And that isn't, it isn't fair, but it is true. Not anywhere close to what happens with what their memory was of it, and that is a rather, this was gradual, doc, a few pounds each year. So this is compared to how people will market the way weight comes off. And almost all of the advertisements are lose 2 pounds a week. Our program doesn't just lose 1 pound a week, it loses 2 pounds a week. Our coaching is so many dollars per year. You can buy it for the whole year. We're going to stick with you till you're at your goal weight. And usually their marketing looks like this. This is what you're going to do, 2 pounds a week. This is when we can plot that you're going to be at the right weight. And we have all these things to make sure that you get there. That's not how people lose weight. That's not true. That's not how people lose weight that want to keep it off. But if you're trying to have a great business model for weight loss, you tell people they're going to lose 2 pounds of weight a week. You help them to stay on track for 2 pounds of weight a week, and then watch what their body is doing in the background, what their body has adapted to, and you're not playing the same game. If you're doing 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss a week, it is definitely a process of things that are whispered from cell to cell. They are whispered inside your brain. That when I look at the different ways people lose weight, I get geeked out on things like this. Where instead of focusing on the scale, what advisors of weight should be looking at is what is that stomach distension, When you have food intake, what is that cholecystokinin doing? What is your leptin doing? PYY, the cytokines, what are the microorganisms in your gut? They should also be measuring the signaling in your brain of the hypothalamus. How is it responding to leptin? How much do the change in temperature, exercise, and up in the response your body has to a change in glucose? How quickly does your body send a message to your gastric system for motility as well as enzyme secretion? What is the noise signal coming from the adipose tissue, and how loud is that in the storage mode versus the empty mode? And where else are you getting your improvements and setbacks documented? And if you're just looking at weight loss 1 to 2 pounds a week, I'm telling you, you're missing all that. It gets even more complicated when you get into the nitty gritty of when they are in a maintenance phase of weight loss. How well did their brain adapt? When they are depriving of nutrients, there are several mechanisms in here that are designed to hold on to nutrients, to hold on to energy. When they are when they're adding, when they're restricting energy, there are several signals that say starvation is the norm. Starvation is what the body is protecting against. And as that starvation signal continues, the patient's not readjusting any of these set points that were a different body, a different set of mechanisms when they were 18. When you look at what they call the early stages of relapse, which means they're gaining back the weight. That's where the body says, I give up, I can't white knuckle it anymore, I can't do this anymore. Those improvements in the body are signaling back and forth and fighting to say, wait a minute, they're depriving us from calories. Wait a minute, we need the calories. Oh, but we're trying to lose weight. And so when people come in and they're asking, Doc, I want to lose weight, what they're really asking for is they want to lose fat. That's number one. They also do not want to lose muscle. And if you look at the signal that most people are after, is they're like, can you do it yesterday? Can you hurry up and do this? And although 1 to 2 pounds sounds like this, reasonable, very balanced, very mature approach to weight loss, I'm here to tell you that rapid weight loss is actually a better and more sustainable process. That sounds a little extreme, so let's get into why I say that. All right, so I have an example of the reality of weight loss, of what should be happening. Let's just make sure I've got my notes in front of me and I'm saying all the things I said I was going to say. So the key thing is when they're losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, that reset of metabolism is constantly downshifting. It is constantly lowering the signal for famine, for metabolic restriction. We know the energy rate that it takes to maintain this mass. We know the amount of endocrine, hormone, brain signals, gut signals that it takes to keep a steady state. And the body is always reaching for a steady state. That is human nature. That is mammalian nature. That is scientific nature. Steady state is what is trying to be achieved. When you want weight loss that's going to happen for the long haul, this is a pattern of weight loss that is sustainable. That when I look at mapping out, setting expectations for a patient coming in saying, yes, you are 50 years old and you are 80 pounds overweight. That can we do it in a year or two? And the answer is absolutely, but it is not 2 pounds a week. It is not coming in and saying, I'm going to drop that scale and change just a couple of little metrics on the mass side of this equation and guarantee that in 2 years it's all going to be off. Because if I do that, well, I'm making a customer for life. And the amount of medical problems that arise when you start doing that, well, again, I'm an internist, so medical problems are my thing. I guess I got a customer for life. But if you do not want to be addicted to me, if you want to actually graduate from seeing doctors, I need an intense weight loss, and then I need your body to stabilize. And then I need an intense weight loss, and then I need your body to stabilize. And then I need an intense weight loss and stabilize, an intense weight loss and stabilize. And you get the pattern. That the interval in between these weight loss is not every other week we do an intense weight loss. I need you to actually lose the weight. And then there's some tricks. There's some important things we're going to get to in this show. So I want to take a minute to share that this patient lost weight in a way that was exactly the way I would want her to lose weight. Now, if you have been watching the show, this is just the best story. I'm going to click on this link, and I am going to post it in our little chat here. I think I can still do that. Yeah, perfect. And if I'm really fancy, I think I can pin it to the top. Pin message. Okay, so there it is, and I will have that in the show notes as well if you're watching this on replay, but I think the pinned one still stays at the top, because this is a great story of somebody who had I'm in the science and in the business of helping people get peak brain performance. This is a patient with Down syndrome, and their brains age faster. That Mary is her mother, who drives from Cocoa Beach to be part of a support group. And she started that 1 year ago this week. She said, she heard I was doing a free support group. I said, just show up. I will advise you. And within a week of I was telling her, week or two of telling her what to do, she said, can I do this for my daughter, who's lost over 100 pounds over the last, I think it was 4 to 5 years. But she has terrible dementia now. She has super anxiety. She's 24/7 full-time care. And so that this picture here, February 20, that's in the future. That's still 6 weeks away. At the time that this was happening a year ago, her daughter was in a really bad place, and not uncommon for Down syndrome. But you can see her daughter now, who is the star angel in the Christmas pageant this past December. And she's actually responsible for one of the other gals on stage with her to just be a mentor or a chaperone. So she went from being not able to hardly leave the house to go to a social setting to being able to regulate her anxiety on stage and really have her cognition back. Now, the reason I posted the link there is I have been working with Chris Palmer to get this published in a series of articles about the ketogenic diet and its case studies. And this one is on brain function. Now, I don't get paid for any of this, and neither does Chris. These are case studies, and there's a game that's played with case studies, and that is the more you refer people to read about your case study, the more clicks that are on that link, the better it is for her story. And Mary, the gal who's from Cocoa Beach here on the chat, you know what? They have had a new lease on life because their daughter's brain is working better. So I didn't know if I'd get chose. There was thousands of case studies that got submitted, a couple dozen that got selected, and Mary knows all about the incredible level of edits that were taken to get passed, to get submitted. But I highly encourage you just to share that on the behalf of Mary and the people that I've been watching. But I tell you her story, not because she was great at weight loss, but because her approach to weight loss was very similar to what I want patients to do, which is I want them to drop weight and then stabilize, and then drop weight and then stabilize. You'll read in that case that she didn't do several things right that are the best metabolic preservation, that her brain didn't get the rescue because of some of the chemistry things. But for sustainable weight loss, they did exactly the right thing, which was drop weight, and then there would be months without losing any weight, and then they would rev up or change things, and they'd drop weight, and then she would stabilize. And it's in that pattern that she was really setting up her daughter for success for her metabolism, but also for sustainable weight loss. Do I think that that patient will gain back the weight? I do not. And that's not always what I say. When I can see metabolism shut down, energies slump, and really having no joy in the life on the other side of being healthy, they just can't find the joy. Relapse is in their future. So I'm going to try to explain a couple things that were not happening in that patient, but happen in the ideal patient when they lose weight and they sustain it. So I'm going to go back to my slides, and I just want you to hang with me. These slides they're a little busy, but and I do a really good job of unpacking them when I'm giving a lecture. But this is not a lecture. This is just a YouTube. Well, okay, it's a kind of a lecture, but this is not the lecture that unpacks these slides. So the first thing I want you to notice is that y-axis shows blood sugars from 60 all the way up to 140. And that range of blood sugars is a pretty healthy level. When you look along the x-axis, along the bottom here, you're going to see time, so morning to night. On this presentation, and most of the presentations I do, glucose, little fellows, are in red. And when I look at average blood sugars, we want them to be around 100. If you can get it a little better, that's nice. But you're going to see that the averages change in patients, and that really is one of those predictors of long-term health. The other y-axis is ketones, and you're going to see our little ketones represented by that. I have a scale from 0 to 3 on this one, but when you look at how that changes in our first patient, we scale it up to blood sugars that start as low as 40 and they go to 120, and the ketones that go from 0 to 2. Because this is a Honduran 10-year-old boy, and he lives on the edge of malnourishment. His resources for food are less, and he has a really good metabolism. Actually, if I could have all my American kids have a metabolism closer to Willie's, they would not need to see the internist before they turn 15. You'll notice that if I'm tracking the red, that's the blood sugar in Willie, he's going to have that little bitty bump in the morning, which is his morning blood sugars. He's going to see 3 times during the day where he eats, and that range of time that he eats is from about 7 in the morning, eats just before the peak of the day, and then really is done eating by 4:30. There are lots of hours in the night when he doesn't have food, and you'll see that his range of how high his glucose gets during that day ranges from as low as that almost 60, and his peak of just over 100. So his blood sugars are really well controlled. In fact, they're kind of on the edge. If I was to look at what his ketones are doing, this is his eating window, opens 6 a.m. or just after, so it's about a 10-hour eating window. When I look at the production of ketones, and this is the other fuel he has, it's not 0. It's hanging out at 0.5 most of the time. It does peak up during the nighttime when he doesn't have resources of glucose, and this is why if I was going to look at the ratio of using carbohydrates and ketones, Willie wins. Willie does a great job of using one resource, switching to the other, and switching back. That he has 3 meals per day, which are rather processed, but he also has eggs, and he has has access to chicken and lots of fat, actually. So his health, because of that narrow eating window and the portion sizes in his life are small, his metabolism is pretty good. All right, so we're going to move on to somebody that you probably all can relate with. Oh, not that one. I'm sorry. Wrong click. This is a 55-year-old. And if you've read KetoCONTINUUM, you'll know that David is not Willie. He is not Willie. His blood sugars range from 80 to 160, and that he starts out his day with a blood sugar almost as high as the highest one that Willie had. David is one of our folks that's gained 80 pounds over the last 20 years, maybe 30 years. He's not 20 pounds. He's gained almost 100 pounds over the last 20 years. Is that what I said? that he starts eating pretty easy in the morning, but even before his first bite of food, his cortisol bumped his blood sugars up to 120. That every time he does eat, he shoots his blood sugars over 160. And in the world of problems, his eating window spans more than 12 hours a day. His endocrine system has been adapting to this pattern of eating. His production of ketones is 0 during the day. There are no ketones being made. And he might get a burp, and I literally mean a burp of ketones made right before his cortisol rises in the morning. His average blood sugars are much higher than Willie's. They are in the diabetic range. If he went to his doctor, it would be an A1C of, like a 6.5. And he comes in and says, "Doc, I want to lose weight." And so he goes from KetoCONTINUUM number 1, which is standard American diet, that's exactly what he was at, to KetoCONTINUUM number 2, which is where we drop those carbohydrates to 20 total or less. And notice the blood sugars are less. And as he progresses to the more advanced stuff that we teach on this channel, that I teach in those classes, he starts to do something that Willie did. And that is his ketones are no longer at 0. His ketones are available. His body's ability to produce and use energy from fat is adapting. And, well, if you've read KetoCONTINUUM, you know that David listened to me about 1/4 of the time. He ended up listening to me all the time, but he would start out saying, "Nah, that doesn't matter. I'll be fine." And then he was 55 years old with 80 pounds extra that he needed. You'll notice there was some morning coffee that raised his blood sugars, and his morning cortisol is still plenty high. I mean, the cortisol raises his blood sugars to be high, but he's got this tool in the background of ketones, and that's really his saving grace that we're not going to go into today. When you look at David's weight loss, that image that I just went through is his approach to what was happening on a daily basis. But if I'm going to look at his weight loss over the months to the years to say, looking where can I help him lose weight? By the way, if you do have questions about what I'm asking, I'm seeing a couple come up on the side. I really want to answer those questions at the end of this. So be typing in your questions to this. Specifically, if you've been to my 21-day course where I teach this stuff, or you have questions about the 21-day course, those are going to be the first questions answered on our live tonight. So that weight loss threshold, what's happening with David is he started out on the standard American diet. And as he went keto, he produced a bunch of ketones, and he had incredible weight loss at first. And as that keto process continued, as his body adapted, he now has a little superpower on his side that he can reach for ketones. But unlike when he was in this zone, where always the glucose fuel was always being used way more frequently and had much higher practice. In fact, if I was really drawing the best line for this, it would probably be that his ketones were way down there. He probably didn't have any ketones. For most people on a standard American diet, especially when they're as overweight as David was, or you get 50 pounds overweight, you get 30 pounds overweight, and then you hold it there for years. That is where people get trapped saying, I am losing 1 to 2 pounds a week. I've done this 6 times. I've lost the weight and it keeps coming back. Why does it keep coming back? And it in part is because you're not having this part. Oopsie, let me try that again. Something you can see. You're not having this section. The section where, yep, there is no weight loss, but they are oscillating in and out of ketosis. They're oscillating in and out of ketosis. And I don't mean every day. So those previous videos or those previous slides showed, wow, when Willie eats, he stays in that stage of ketosis. And when he sleeps, his ketones take over because his glucose drops. That's what normally happens. But in David's case, it had been so long since he made a ketone. When I go through every single stage of what was happening into David, you will see that he makes a bucket of ketones. And then these adaptions start to happen. Just like with every other mechanism inside the human body, it's going to reach for a line of stability. That he stresses the system out by pushing those ketones up, his glucose goes down, and then you get in a stage like I'm in. Like I showed up at this show tonight with a glucose of 50 something, 51, and the ketone was 0.7, isn't that right? Yeah, 51 and 0.7. So that is in a, you could say it is stall. I'm like, well, am I supposed to do something about that? Is that okay that I'm there? My Dr. Boz ratio is terrible. Now, you have to be following along in the story of where has that number been? What is it that, what am I trying to accomplish here? And that's what I find in this zone, where they're not losing weight. They're in a stall. You can call it a stall, but there's something magical happening on the inside of their body. And I like to point out that when they're really looking for an improvement, it is that when they get to this stall here and they want the next step, that's what we teach in the workbook, the KetoCONTINUUM, the online course. And it's specifically what we use in our 21-day course that is going on sale tomorrow, unless you want to pre-book, and that is, those are my favorite people, because I know how many people are going to be in the class, and I get to specifically handpick your coaches. So the reality of weight loss is the same graph that I just did a minute ago, and it is showing that when weight loss is happening, in this plateau part are where those lines that glucose comes and ketones comes. I don't mean like every day that I'll have ketones and glucose that are flipping back and forth. I am metabolically flexible. David was metabolically flexible right after that wave of ketones, and he's in that zone. And his body will do a remarkable number of things to stabilize. And it's during this section that there are 3 things he does need to do in order to have sustainable weight loss. So let's get to it. What are those sustainable things that you need for weight loss? So I'm going to tell you why 2 pounds a week does not work. And really what I'm going to teach you is the 3 things backwards and then forwards. That the first thing is they smolder on the edge of that chemistry shift. This is that starvation mode that people say, how do I know, Dr. Boz, that my metabolic rate isn't dropping every time I click on the change of scale that isn't changing too much, but my 2 pounds of weight loss a week is just happening at a smidge level. And how do I know that I'm not shutting down my metabolism? And one of the ways that you can watch that, we teach in this course, is you got to have ketones that you can recruit, that your ketones need to come to your rescue, and that needs to be on a rhythmical timing, not just once a month, not just once a year, but in a place where you can really watch your metabolism working. And when they smolder on the edge of a chemistry shift, that's when they spend more time with glucose as their primary fuel, and that their ketones, I don't think you'll be able to see that, so I'll do ketones, are absent. That's what smoldering looks like. And before David had met me, he was on a diet that was not called protein power. It's called I'm totally blanking on the name of that. Anyway, it was a popular weight loss program about 20 years ago where they would put them on shakes. They would put them in ketosis for like a week or so, and then they would let them have more and more carbohydrates. And so they would get into ketosis for like the first week and a half, drop about 10 pounds, and then they would add back so many carbs that they never made ketones again. That's just a tease of weight loss. And what's happening after that is this starvation mode that is found in weight loss plan after weight loss plan. Because in the background, all of that chemistry that I mentioned in the last one has to happen. In that stabilization phase, your body has to get used to this new set of rules. And if you go to the weight loss process without a time of stabilization, you're going to slide backwards. You're going to have a withdrawal. You're going to have a return of the weight. So looking at cholecystokinin, leptin, peptide YY, ghrelin, you're looking at hormones of satiety. That those hormones of satiety have to be recruited to help you. Without that, your your weight gain plan will return. 2 pounds a week does not work because there is no time for this endocrine reset. That has to be programmed and found. Now, most of the time this happens without people noticing, as long as they have step 1. We're going to get back to that. This is what you should not be doing. This is what does not work. So if you smolder, doesn't work. If you don't give this endocrine the time it needs to reset, you're going to gain the weight back. And there has to be an identity shift. This is really powerful in when I teach addicts, when I walk with addicts out of their addiction. We tell them, you need new friends, you need new hangouts, you need new pastimes. Is that a word? Pastimes? Need new habits. What I'm telling them is they need a new identity. And I love a couple of thought leaders, influencers in this world where they say, every day at the gym, I kill my identity. I killed my identity today. And it's because that's a haunting place that takes you back to the habits you used to have. Today, for the check-in of our group, I try to use a check-in question to get everybody to engage. And so I said, do you have a process in your life that every time you get to the... oh my goodness. Excuse me. Do you have a process in your life that every time you're doing really well, you're resetting behaviors, but there's this one thing that you can't seem to shift and stay on the other side of it? You'll do it well for a little while and then you give it up. And then you do it well for a little while and then you give it up. And then I always start by sharing what mine was. And it is such, I can remember doing this with addiction patients as well, that it's such a powerful moment to say, no, here are the places where I do a great job and I am fully embracing who I am, but there's this one spot, and every time I am with this one person, and every time I'm in this place, and every time I'm in this environment, every time I feel this emotion, the identity of who I was as a child, as I was as a young wife, that comes back, and I become the person that does those behaviors. And to watch the room share that moment those are places where identifying that makes all the difference in people who have who've relapsed again and again, who've gone down the weight loss and then gone back up, finding that identity, finding one of those places and saying, this is a habit I want you to work on. I want to make sure that I said fat-based hormones. Hormones of satiety are one thing and fat-based hormones are the other one. This is just a slide saying these are the other places that definitely are resetting during those plateaus. But if you've been following along, you know that Joel is one of the folks who I've been using his example. He comes to group. He did correct me this morning that he's not 5'6", he's 6'1". In fairness, I meet the guy when we're sitting down, so I should have just always round up, doctor. So, but he just dove into the ketogenic diet and did not feel well. And it was about at 6 weeks where he did feel well, where I could guarantee this was better. This was better. This was better. These are all of his progesterone. Sorry, that probably has not changed much in him. But truly, when people are fat based, when they are in a ketogenic state, when they have that access to fat circulation and the insulin suppressing, these are the hormones that are resurrecting, and they do not improve in a day. They take time. So here are the 3 major rules for people that have sustained weight loss. Number 1, they have an intense start. It is not this casual thing that I'm going to start on Monday and then I'm going to gradually get into this first thing. They begin with intention. They are mentally and emotionally prepared for weight loss. And without a doubt, I have seen this go bad a lot of times where people say, they have the mentality, they have the start date, but you can tell about everything in their mind and their heart that they're really not ready, that they're not surrendered. I've seen it work out well when they have a very committed accountability partner, whether that's their spouse, whether that's a Biggest Loser, they start out very committed, and they've got a coach, they've got an intense group that gets them past day 1 to day 2, on to day 3, feeling proud of themselves by the end of the week. They're in a vortex of the right, the right magic, the right motivation. So if you're not good at finding that motivation, the tribe you're around is really, really important for that intense part. That you can find other places, we're going to get to that in the next section, that don't work out, that you don't have to have. But so first one is they have an intense start date. They are mentally and emotionally ready to do this. The second thing is that they expect the intense phase to end. That if you watch what happens to every weight loss plan that is the 2 pounds per week, it dwindles. Their impact dwindles. And it's not just the metabolism that's responding. It is that you can only hit peak performance for a period of time, and then you need to find your baseline, find your I don't want to say comfort, because people turn into comfort food. They really do reset. When I look at weight loss plans that are going to last forever, they lose weight and then they hold. And then they lose weight and then they hold. And in that season of losing weight, they're not alone. They have a partner. They have a system. They have a spouse. I don't care who they use, but it is intense, and it is a limited time where you say, really do it correctly for this period of time. We lead you through that in the 21 days when I do this 21-day course. I know better than to do it more than twice a year, because I'm the one leading it. And that's about all I can say. You've got to be intentional. It's got to be an intense commitment. And then it needs to be over. And what we wrap into that is some of this education that you're getting tonight, but also we talk about how important it is that you're going to feel a sense of satiety when your hormones improve. Where they are at on the keto continuum, how long they've been overweight is part of what we calculate to say, where are they going to run into problems? Where are they going to have the troubles? And the next thing we talk about, and we do lots of psychology inside this class, is to kill that old identity. The question I like to ask when I'm in person with the patients is, can you live with this new identity the rest of your life? And the story I shared this morning, my personal story, is something that I still can't let go of. It is a place that I keep trying to figure out, how can I have both? How can I have that moment that I still love? But I know it isn't. I keep doing more carbohydrates, more fall off the wagon than I should, but I have a tough time saying, could I give that up for the rest of my life? And it's very real. It's very emotional. But that is a place where I say, I'm not going to work on that then. If I can't find this image in my mind that says, I can be this much better for the rest of my life. And last year we did a series, the first, I think it was 12 or 16 live shows in 2022 were all about how do you use atomic habits? How do you take a habit and habit stack it? How do you take that and then link it to something better? And how do you take it and link it to something less? And I really find that when I'm looking at a goal and I can see that it's way too big, they're going to crash. The first question that I can help them see that it's too big of a goal is, can you adopt this identity? And really important, sometimes I don't get to use the word identity, but with you I'm using it. Can you adopt this version of you for the rest of your life? And if they stutter, if they have a reaction, I'm like, let's pick a goal that you can succeed at, because we'll get the weight off. We'll deal with that. But it is truly where when they pick a change that is too big, they will relapse. So I need you to pick one change and then hold on to it. And this is where that area where they, after that intense improvement, which is what we do for the 21 days, and we set forth several tools that you're gonna need in order to stabilize and hold. The adherence of every one of these weight loss programs fades with time. meaning if you're trying to stay that intense for the whole year, if you're trying to say 2 pounds a week, 2 pounds a week, 2 pounds a week, not only do your hormones not catch up, the emotion of who you are, you cannot change identities that quickly and hold them. And so I like to end with this final statement, and that is that when I'm looking at helping people get through not just an intense improvement in their metabolism, I am looking for them to write a love story. Now, love is this mutual agreement about our future. When you fall in love with somebody, it's this promise of the future and what it's going to be. And when I am trying to help somebody through a weight loss program, I need them to find the version of them, the future version of them that they love. Not that they idolize, those marriages don't work. Not that they command to, that they're just a strict, I follow the rules, I follow the rules, I follow the rules. Those fail too. I need them to work on that love relationship in every one of these plateaus. Yep, the chemistry is improving. Yep, that cholecystokinin getting better. Yep, that satiety hormones are getting better. But each time this plateau, they want to go into another intense version. I say, yep, I can lead you through an intense change in your metabolism, no problem. We can do it intensely for 3 weeks, and then I can send you on your way. We do this as a group in the 21-day metabolic challenge. But what I'm really hoping to inspire in the coaches that I mentor, and then the students that are in this room, is that the success comes with imagining the love of you that is in your future, and that it is stable, that it is attainable, that it is genuine. So I don't say that with a casualness, because if I had to put weight, that's a pun. If I had to put more emphasis on where the power of losing weight is, yes, I love teaching you about your mitochondria and metabolism and hormones, but what I really think is one of the most powerful things that happened in the first 21-day course, and I have plans for it to happen in the next one, is that there is this mirror neuron process that I've been working on in my life, and I've been through plenty of tragedies and plenty of heartbreaks and plenty of setbacks and plenty of injustices to have some pretty good practice at grace. And how do I forgive me and go and show up and try again the next day? How do I create an environment that when I get ticked off and I get frustrated and I get that with myself, how do I say, all right, find the version of you that you can love tomorrow? And it sounds a little squishy, but it truly is something that happens. When I learned this from another female doctor who had gone through some huge setbacks. And she was the most impressive example of how to use her persistence, her faith, her intelligence, and really setting this process of improve just a little bit and then hold. And hers didn't have to do with weight. Hers had to do with behavior changes that are too long for this show. Let me give one more thing I want to make sure before we go to questions. So in our... first of all, the end screens for tonight, I want you to, there is a 6-minute end screen of some really cool stories that I've never shared on YouTube. So I would love it if you push that end screen. YouTube loves it if you push that end screen. But the second thing I want to click on is that this pre-booking for our 21 days is still open for another few hours, and then I'm going to turn it off. And what the pre-booking looks at is that if you want me to personally select your coach, and you want the improvements, or you want the first shot at the time slots that fit your schedule. This is a live show. This is a live program. It is not there are some pre-recorded things in there that I need everybody to learn, but which took me over a year to write and has a lot to do with the slides about Willie and David that I showed tonight. But you can learn a lot more about this in the video here. Yes, it's 27 minutes long, but it's very good about what you get. I like to point out a couple things that in this schedule that we have here, it shows you that before the class, we set up a few things that we didn't do as good the first time. We're doing a lot better this time. Here's the schedule of Monday through Friday, what we're doing. I am your first morning huddle every day live that really does show you if you want to look inside a clinic and see what do I do, how do I do this. And if you pre-sign up, which again ends in a couple hours, it doesn't change the price. It just changes your access for which coach you get and which time slot you get, because there are definitely some popular ones, and once the rooms are full, we just have you go to a different coach. So the other part that's really amazing is to read what folks had to say about this course. It truly has changed my outlook. This week I get to go to a conference called Low Carb USA, but it's in Boca Raton, Florida. And I get to share with other doctors how I think medicine could be done. And I truly am grateful for people who've said yes. There's 2 sets during the year of this course that I lead people through an intense improvement in their metabolism. I deliver a mirror neuron, and if you've been studying with me long enough, you know that means you can't learn a behavior as an adult unless you can see it. So you're in a group of how do you do this perfectly? What is the most advanced way for the stage you're at to hike up your metabolism? And then watch the medical problems reverse. And I don't say that with tongue in cheek. This is absolutely one of the places I hope to spend the rest of my career, is leading people through this course to say, I don't want you here for the rest of your life, just like I don't want my addiction patients for the rest of their life. I want them to get better and get on with their life. And that's what medicine was supposed to be about. But somewhere we got tied up in prescriptions and ordering labs, and you don't need a doctor to do a ketogenic diet. In this class, you get to see what is the most advanced level that I do with my patients. And what I hope to be doing is planting hundreds of seeds. Those are called patients. Those are called students in communities across the country to say, here's how she does it inside her clinic. And that's what we teach inside this course. So sales go on sale tomorrow. We do have a cap on the number of students, and we only sell this course for 7 days. So we close sales next Wednesday. All right, I would love to know what you thought of that peek inside my assessment for how do you lose weight, and how important it is to have those stalls. We are going to go into questions here. Let me hop over and okay, I had to click over here and find the questions. Oops, that's not the one I was looking for. Here we go. All right, Karen writes in and said, should we participate in the 21-day course if we were in the first one? So that is a great question. It is designed to give you the intense 21 days. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest negative reviews at the end of that course was, I want it to go on longer. I want it to go on longer. And although I could have probably figured out a way to take people's money and get them in there longer, it's the same thing that happens inside an addiction clinic, is that my job is to give you the tools to do this on your own. And when I hold the responsibility forever, it denies you owning that responsibility, owning that you can do this. But we know that not everybody launches on the first time through. We also know that when people come in, they come in at different levels. What we do with beginners, much different than what we do with folks like Joel. Joel, who comes in and just tumbles into keto and has some really tough setbacks, but course corrected. but not everybody gets course corrected. They kind of get muffled in that first section if they don't really do a few things that they got to back up and do correctly. And what we've seen and what we've heard from lots, when we had everybody fill out a survey, and then we've contacted dozens of the students to say, here's what we think, how are you doing? What's your commitment since then? And we know that people were able to get better, and then some held pretty well, and some slipped back. And then what we're trying to do is say, now go to the next level. Now that thing you thought you couldn't do last time, come with us again and try to do it again. And we've learned that not only do you get better at that little thing I was telling you about, saying, can you see yourself in the future? When you are the weakest one in your group, meaning that you were all in classrooms last time, if you showed up in the classroom and you felt like everybody else was more advanced, but you learned so much and you got the value of what happens inside that intense positive peer pressure, and you learned the things and you've got the video, that's all there. But this time around, there'll be 10 new cases. Maybe you'll be one of those cases. But this time around, maybe you're not that identity of the weakest one in the group, the one who's the least amount of keto, of advanced. Maybe this time you're the mentor, and that's where your identity gets a little more solid. So when people ask, should they take this again? I need you to look at your life and say, are you as healthy as you need to be? Are you stable and you need a boost? Or are you stable and saying, I'm good? I don't need to oversell this. I only have slots for the people who really want this. And I know that as I stand in front of physicians in the next few days and say, how do I think? What do I think could be some of the processes or policies or best practices that could be used in today's world? I know that I really think God has had the brakes on some of the things I've needed to restart the clinic here in Florida. And I'm mad. I got mad. I got ticked. I got frustrated. I felt like this is an injustice. And then I sat back and said, what am I supposed to be learning here? What am I supposed to be doing that I can enjoy? And when that 21-day course came along, and I had this dream that I could do this, that I could say, could I make the kind of impact if they weren't in my clinic, if they were part of the group? And I am humbled to show you how I can't wait to show the other physicians, you can do this. We could do this. This works. And I only have one class, and I had all this data, and I told them, we do not keep your data past the course. We will stop doing it after the course. And so before I took averages of what were their blood glucose improvements, what was their ketone improvements, what did they lose, how much weight did they lose, how many prescriptions did we stop? I didn't keep track of any of that. I was just so concerned with saying control for what I said I'd do, and honor. This is the first time somebody said, can I share your data on a screen publicly inside your classroom? Nobody's ever asked patients to do that before, and oh my gosh, was it so powerful. All right, so here's some other questions. So good question. Should you take it again? I think you need to look at your life. You need to look at what is it you need. And we're not looking for partial commitment. Part of that is the finances associated with it. We are asking for people to pay attention, to show up. This is not a casual commitment. And you will not feel a casual improvement. Dang, I clicked on the wrong one again. When does the next class start? Good question. Last time we took students right up to the day before class started, and it was complete chaos the first 2 days and maybe 3 days in class. So we are taking students starting on tomorrow, the 11th, and we are closing the doors on the 18th in 7 days. But class doesn't start till the following Monday, which is the 23rd of January, and it's a 21-day course. Now, you'll get into the class before that as far as the platform that we use to communicate and to teach. So you'll meet your coach. There's one task in there that you can do before class starts on Monday, which is to introduce yourself, and then there's quite a community that is that just becomes a life of its own that I really like, and it's not on Facebook. Not Facebook. I like that it's not on Facebook. So good question. It starts on the 23rd, but we are opening the enrollment here and getting the I did it again, dang it. Okay, next question is how do you know in the course if a stall, how do you know in the course of a stall that it's the time to move to another intense phase? Okay, perfect. So that's a really good question, Patty. When looking at those times when they're at a stable level, and I don't know if you can probably rewind the slide or the video and go back and say, look how many different step downs there were in a year. The slide that I'm thinking about was a 2-year course, and I think there was like 7 step downs. So they lose weight and they stabilize, and they lose weight and they stabilize. So in that stabilization, first of all, you need a few weeks to stabilize hormones at the beginning. That's why when you look at the keto continuum, it is not an accident that I say drop to 20 total carbs and then don't look at anything else. And then this magical moment comes where they miss a meal. I am depending on that. I am depending on the signal that says, hey, their hormones are working. Their satiety was real. They did not eat when they usually would eat. And that's powerful. So when I look at several of the metrics that are, they're stalled, is it time for another level? Timing of the hormones is at least a couple of weeks at this stabilized weight. And I say a couple of weeks because there's been a few people who are really metabolically pretty healthy, meaning they haven't had the weight on there for 30 years, or they've been in a good phase and they had chemotherapy, and now they really need their metabolism to really boost up in between now and the next time we'll need chemo. So it's those seasons where a couple of weeks of just stable. I do not want gain. Just stable. Most of the patients who've had the weight on for a long time, it's a fistful of weeks before I want them hitting another intense phase. But that's the metrics. There is also an emotional side and a supportive side. Again, envisioning what it is that you have adopted for this identity. If you've been somebody who crashes and burns and crashes and burns and crashes and burns, and now you crashed and now you're at the stable level and now you're ready for the next level and you're ready to go again and you're ready to go again, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you are truly in the identity that says, okay, you got what you're doing, you're comfortable where you're at, and you've got the support and emotional reserve to do the next step. And so when I look at people's stalls, yes, there is a time factor. 2 weeks is as fast as I would do it. And again, usually there's a medical reason I'm trying to push them for that. A fistful of weeks is usually what it takes to get stabilized, and then you can take on another intensity. Usually they're little steps inside the keto continuum. I know folks like Joel show up. I keep picking on him. Show up and they're like, I want to eat for only 15 minutes a day, and then I open the eating window up, and then but now I want to fast for 72 hours every week, and I'm like, slow down. Take these in steps, because what's happening is you do shift who you are every one of the steps, and if you race to the bottom, there's no steps left. And so I need the adjustments being made that you take up an intensity. And again, sometimes it's not as much weight loss as it was, waistline decreased over that intense time. So definitely looking at the metrics of emotional, supportive, and how stable are they in the vision they have for the love of themselves in the next few weeks. All right, last question here. Actually, that was the last question. My bad. So I do want you to know that the end screen tonight is a video that you have not seen. So I would love it if you give praise to these patients who told their stories. And they're not weight loss stories. There's some weight loss, but there's some unbelievable change your life. Share them with people who have these problems. This video is unlisted, so the only way you get to it is through this end screen. And I just hope you appreciate how vulnerable these patients were when they shared that. Oh, I'm gonna check my numbers. See how I'm doing. I have a little headache. I don't know if that's from the sneezing. Have I ever sneezed on a live show before? So yes, Valerie writes in and says, is the cost just under $1,000? The answer is yes, it is. We are, I'm looking for the twice a year commitment that if I was budgeting how to get off of prescription medications. It's this type of course that has the leadership, the supervision, and the metrics to help people really move the needle. We are not looking for a casual student. We want people that are absolutely ready to do this, and that's how I think the results are also. We were working with people who are ready for this commitment, because it is. I only do this twice a year for a reason. Oh my gosh! So my blood sugar is down to 42. Maybe that's why I have a little headache. I don't think that's from sneezing, but I feel fine, people. And my ketones up to, yeah, definitely. Like if you only have this much glucose, you got to have some ketones. So that would be part of it is the keto pucker up, but it has been since Sunday morning since I had any calories. So and it was a little bit of an egg. So that's enough for tonight. We will see you next week. I do have an update of what I'm going to be sharing in my poster on at this conference, which won't be live. There's no way to look at it. The only way you're going to get it is here next week. So I'll see you then. And I really